The crystalline walls of the Galactic Council chamber pulsed with an anxious crimson glow, reflecting the mood of its occupants. High Councillor Zixis, his translucent tentacles writhing in agitation, gestured at the holographic display dominating the center of the room. 3 fleets. His voice synthesizer crackled with distortion. 3 of our most advanced battle groups, reduced to atomic scatter across the Nexus 7 system. The Draketh aren't just resisting annexation. They're making us look like amateur spacefarers. The assembled representatives of 200 spacefaring civilizations watched in horrified silence as the hologram replayed the latest disaster. The pride of the Council's military strength, a Thessian dreadnought nearly the size of a small moon, approached the cloudy atmosphere of Nexus 7. Its energy shields flickered like an aurora, cutting-edge quantum fields, ready to repel any attack. No attack came. Instead, the massive vessel simply stopped. Its lights flickered once, twice, and then every system simultaneously failed. The dreadnought hung in space for 3 heartbeats before breaking apart like a child's toy, its crew of 10,000 lost in an instant. "Their technology is impossible," muttered Representative Yix, her crystalline form chiming softly with stress harmonics. "They've developed something that negates all power systems. Energy weapons, shields, even basic life support, all useless. We can't even maintain surveillance. Every probe we send either goes dark or feeds us corrupted data." "Perhaps," rumbled Supreme Commander Cal, his massive armored form towering over the other council members, "it is time to consider more severe options. A targeted Nova Cascade world. We are not destroying a Class 7 habitable world." Zexis's tentacles flared an angry purple. Nexus 7's resources could sustain Council space for millennia. Its strategic position, controlling 3 major trade routes, makes it essential for our expansion plans. We need that planet intact. In the back of the chamber, hidden in the shadows of a support column, Junior Representative Elena Martinez of Earth felt her throat go dry. Humanity had only held a council seat for 8 standard months. They were the newest, most primitive members of galactic society, barely tolerated for their unusual cognitive patterns and crude faster-than-light drives. But watching the replay of that massive dreadnought crumbling, she remembered something from her academy days. Something about the Maginot Line, and how sometimes the most advanced defenses could be overcome by thinking backwards. What about humans? The words escaped before she could stop them. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien faces, some barely recognizable as faces, turned toward her. Elena forced herself to step forward, her ceremonial robes feeling too tight around her shoulders. "Excuse me." Zixis's translator somehow managed to convey both confusion and disdain. Elena swallowed hard but continued. "The Draketh can negate advanced technology. But what if? What if we sent in a team that doesn't rely on it? Humans still train some of our warriors in primitive combat techniques, ancient weapons, survival skills that don't need power sources. You suggest we send primitives with sticks against the most advanced defensive systems we've ever encountered." Cal's laughter boomed through the chamber. "Why not send them in with harsh language and stern looks? Our predictive engines give even our most advanced strategic plans a 0.03% chance of success." Yix chimed thoughtfully. Perhaps we should let the probability computers evaluate this unusual approach. What harm could it do?" The massive quantum processors hummed to life. Data streamed across the holographic display, evaluating countless variables. Elena held her breath. The numbers crystallized. 12% probability of success. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Zixus's tentacles froze mid-writhe. "Get me your best team," he said slowly. "You have one standard cycle to prepare them, but when they die, humanity's council seat dies with them." Elena nodded stiffly, already reaching for her communicator. She knew exactly who to call. Major Amanda Wildcard Blackwood had been looking for a chance to prove that humanity's primitive ways still had value in this advanced age. The Draketh were about to learn why Earth's predators were still the stuff of nightmares. Major Amanda Blackwood stood before her locker at the Special Operations Command bunker, Earth's most advanced military facility, and packed the most primitive gear she could find. A carbon fibre composite bow, indistinguishable from its wooden ancestors. Stone-napped obsidian knives sharper than surgical steel. Hemp rope treated with secret family techniques passed down through generations of mountaineers. Her smartphone chirped. "Major, the council transport arrives in 10 minutes. They're concerned about your supply requisition." Amanda grinned, tucking a fire-starting kit into her belt. "Bet they are, Elena. Tell them I'll explain everything personally." 30 minutes later, she strode into the Galactic Council chamber like she owned it, tracking mud from her morning training exercise across the immaculate floor. The assembled aliens recoiled slightly. Whether from the dirt or from her predatory grace, she couldn't tell. Probably both. "This," High Chancellor Zixus's translator crackled, "is your elite warrior." Amanda pulled an arrow from her quiver and tested its fletching. "Permission to demonstrate, Chancellor." Before anyone could respond, she knocked the arrow and loosed it in one fluid motion. The projectile whispered across the chamber, passing through the holographic display of Nexus 7, and embedded itself in the far wall, precisely between two of Zixus's writhing tentacles. Primitive projectile weapons are forbidden in the council chamber. Supreme Commander Call thundered, his massive form rising in outrage. "Your security scanners didn't detect it, did they?" Amanda kept her voice casual. "Just like they're not detecting the 3 knives, 2 garrots of the Blogan darts I'm carrying. Just like the Draketh won't detect us." Silence fell. The implications sank in. "Your plan," Representative Yix chimed nervously. "How exactly would it work?" Amanda stepped into the holographic display, her figure now standing on the virtual surface of Nexus 7. 12 operators. No powered weapons. No electronics. Nothing their dampening fields can detect or disable. We go in quiet, we study their patterns, and we do what humanity does best. We adapt, we survive, and we hunt. Hunt. Zixus's tentacles curled in confusion. The Draketh are not prey animals. Everything's prey to something. Amanda's grin turned wolfish. Humanity didn't get to be Earth's apex predator with fancy tools. We did it by outlasting, outthinking, and outsmarting everything else on our planet. While you were developing energy weapons, we were perfecting the art of the ambush. While you built force fields, we learned to move silently through any terrain. She pulled up her sleeve, revealing a lattice of scars. 3 years ago, I was stranded in Earth's Amazon rainforest. My tech failed. My weapons were lost. I survived for 6 months, using nothing but stone tools and techniques taught to me by indigenous tribes. The Draketh think technology makes them invincible. I think it makes them vulnerable. The Council's AA hummed to life unbidden. Analysis of historical human hunting techniques indicates potential viable strategies against Draketh infrastructure. Calculating mission parameters. No. Amanda's voice cut through the mechanical drone. Your computers can't calculate this. This isn't about statistics or technology. This is about instinct, adaptation, and skills carved into our DNA by millions of years of evolution. She drew one of her stone knives, the obsidian blade catching the chamber's light. Your civilizations forgot what it means to be hungry, to be hunted, to survive by wit and will alone. Humanity remembers. The Draketh have never faced an enemy like us, because they've never faced an enemy who could thrive without technology. High Counselor Zexus floated closer, examining the primitive weapons with new interest. And you believe 12 humans with sticks and stones can succeed where our fleets failed. Amanda sheathed her knife with practiced precision. No, Counselor. I believe 12 humans with knowledge older than your civilization will remind the galaxy why our ancestors were feared by everything else on Earth. We won't just succeed. We'll make the Draketh wish they'd surrendered to your fleets instead. Dawn broke over the Appalachian wilderness as John Two Rivers pressed his ear to the forest floor. Behind him, 11 of Earth's finest special operations soldiers waited in complete silence. Even the alien observers, hovering in their environmental suits, seemed to hold their breath. 3 deer passed here an hour ago, Two Rivers whispered, rising with fluid grace. Moving northeast, probably toward the creek. He turned to Amanda. Your turn, Major. Amanda dropped to the ground, mimicking his posture. The wet earth spoke to our senses. Not just tracks, but a story. 4 deer, she corrected, allowing herself a small smile. One was carrying extra weight, probably pregnant. Two Rivers nodded, approval glinting in his dark eyes. You're learning. Soon you'll be ready for the real challenge, tracking prey that knows it's being hunted. The team had been training for 2 weeks, absorbing knowledge from Earth's greatest wilderness experts. Each instructor brought generations of accumulated wisdom, passed down through cultures that had never lost touch with humanity's primal roots. Maria Santos, fresh from the Amazon, demonstrated how to craft poisons from seemingly harmless plants. Our ancestors didn't have laboratories, she explained while crushing leaves into a paste. They learned through observation, through trial and error. Every plant, every insect tells a story. You just have to know how to listen. In the afternoon, Jabari Okoro taught them to make weapons from the land itself. His calloused hands shaped wood and stone with practiced precision. Modern soldiers think a knife is just a knife, he said, napping obsidian into lethally sharp blades. But there are 100 types of edges, each perfect for a specific task. The Draketh will expect soldiers. We'll give them hunters. The alien observers recorded everything, their analytical minds struggling to quantify what they were seeing. One particularly frustrated Thesian scientist finally burst out, "But how can you track anything on Nexus 7? You've never even seen the local flora and fauna." Amanda paused in her work, carefully wrapping a leather grip around a newly fashioned spear. "The details don't matter," she explained. "We're not memorizing specific signs. We're learning to read the language of survival itself. Every environment has patterns. Every living thing leaves traces. The principles are universal." To prove her point, the team was dropped into different wilderness areas each night. Arctic tundra, desert wastelands, sweltering jungles. Each time they had to survive, navigate, and track their instructors using only what they could make or find. They learned to move silently through any terrain, their movements becoming fluid and natural. They mastered the art of camouflage, using only natural materials. Most importantly, they learned to think like their ancestors, to see the world not as soldiers with missing equipment, but as hunters with everything they needed in the world around them. On the final day of training, 2 rivers led them to a sacred cave deep in the mountains. Ancient paintings covered the walls, scenes of hunts and battles dating back thousands of years. Our ancestors, he said, his voice echoing in the chamber, didn't have energy weapons or force fields. They had something more powerful, the knowledge of countless generations, paid for in blood and survival. Every technique we've taught you was earned through millennia of trial and error, success and failure, life and death. Amanda touched one of the paintings, a group of hunters taking down a mammoth. The Draka think they're superior because their technology can defeat our technology, she said softly. But we're not bringing technology, we're bringing this. She gestured to the ancient art. We're bringing the accumulated knowledge of every hunter, every survivor, every warrior who lived and died learning these skills. As if in response, the alien observer sensors suddenly crackled and died, an equipment malfunction caused by natural magnetic properties in the cave's rocks. In the darkness, someone lit a handcrafted torch, and Amanda smiled at the irony. "Time to pack up," she announced. "Tomorrow, we show the galaxy that humanity's oldest weapons are still its most dangerous." The cave paintings seemed to watch them leave, ancient hunters bidding farewell to their modern descendants, carrying their wisdom to the stars. The stealth pod screamed through Nexus 7's atmosphere, its crude heat shield burning away in chunks. Inside, Amanda and her team braced themselves against the violent descent, their primitive gear lashed down with handmade cordage. No safety harnesses, no inertial dampeners, just raw physics and human endurance. 2 minutes to impact. Amanda shouted over the roar. "Remember, we're aiming for the southeastern swamps." The Draketh's sensors are weakest there due to natural electromagnetic interference from the mineral deposits. The pod's single viewport cracked, then spiderwebbed. Through the fractured glass, the alien world's surface rushed up to meet them. A riot of purple vegetation and iridescent water bodies. Their trajectory was perfect, right until it wasn't. A sudden crosswind caught them, sending the pod into a spin. Emergency thrusters, their only concession to modern technology, sputtered and died. Amanda saw her team's faces in the strobing light, not fear, but fierce concentration. They trained for this. They trained for everything. Impact. The pod split open like a ripe fruit, scattering humans and equipment across 100 meters of alien swamp. Amanda surfaced from the murky water, immediately counting heads. One by one, her team emerged from the muck, dragging salvaged gear with them. "Sound off," she commanded in a harsh whisper. 6 packs of supplies lost, reported Martinez, her face streaked with purple mud. 2 bows damaged beyond repair, half our arrows gone. "Good," Amanda replied, surprising everyone. Our ancestors didn't have supply drops. They made do with what they had. She pulled a sodden map from her waterproof pouch, hand-drawn on cured leather, nothing electronic to fail. "We're 15 clicks off target. Time to adapt." The alien swamp pressed in around them, filled with sounds that no human had ever heard before. Strange, luminescent insects buzzed past. Something large moved beneath the water's surface, creating ripples that spoke of significant mass. Jenkins, the team's designated toolmaker, was already testing local wood samples with his stone knife. "This purple stuff," he muttered. "It's got a grain like bamboo, but it's dense as oak. Could make decent bow stays." "Priority is shelter," Amanda decided, studying the alien sun's position. "Night's coming in about 4 hours, and we don't know what hunts in the dark yet." She grinned. "Though soon enough, we will be what hunts in the dark." They moved through the swamp like ghosts, 12 humans applying Earth's oldest survival skills to an alien world. Rodriguez spotted edible tubers using techniques learned from Amazonian tribes. Chen identified safe drinking water by watching which pools the local wildlife used. Cooper started working on new arrows, fletching them with iridescent leaves that matched the local vegetation perfectly. As darkness fell, they had a defensible camp in the tangled roots of what looked like a colossal mangrove tree. Carefully controlled microfires, shielded from view, dried their remaining equipment. Multiple escape routes were prepared and memorized. Natural alarms, trips of vine and arrangements of loose debris, would alert them to any approach. First Dracoth patrol, past half a click east, Thompson reported, returning from her scouting run. They're not even trying to move quietly. All powered armor and energy weapons. She spat out something that had been in her mouth. Also, I've been chewing local plant fibers. Found one that numbs the tongue. Could be useful for our arrows. Amanda nodded, mentally adding it to their growing arsenal. In just 6 hours on this alien world, they'd begun to unlock its secrets. Not through scanners or computers, but through the most sophisticated analytical engines ever created, the human mind and human senses, honed by millions of years of evolution. Get some rest, she ordered. Tomorrow, we start gathering intelligence. Real intelligence, not electronic data. We'll learn their patterns, their habits, their weaknesses. And then, she tested the edge of her obsidian knife, its blade catching the alien moonlight. Then we'll teach them why humans were once feared by everything that walked, crawled, or flew on Earth. In the distance, a Dracoth patrol's powered armor whined as it passed, the sound carrying clearly through the swamp. The humans smiled in the darkness. All that technology, making so much noise, it might as well have been painting a target on itself. The hunt was about to begin. Movement report. The Dracoth security chief Krathos demanded, his scaled hide shifting colors with agitation. 3 patrols missing in Section 7, his subordinate replied. 2 more in Section 12 failed to report. Search teams found only this. He placed a single arrow on the command table, its shaft made from local purple wood, its head napped from crystalline minerals found in the swamp. Krathos lifted the primitive projectile, his compound eyes analyzing its crude yet effective construction. Impossible. No advanced species would use such primitive tools. A sudden commotion erupted outside his office. A survivor from the latest missing patrol had been found, babbling incoherently about shadows that moved against the wind and whispers in an alien tongue. They're not attacking like soldiers, the traumatized warrior guessed. They're hunting us like animals. Amanda watched through a carefully parted curtain of bioluminescent vines as another Dracoth patrol passed below. Their powered armor whined softly, energy weapons humming with barely contained power. So much technology, and all of it useless against what was coming. Target identified, Thompson whispered, indicating a pipe emerging from the fortress wall. Water intake. The filters are basic mechanical systems, no electronics to detect tampering. Amanda nodded. Cooper, the paste. Cooper unwrapped a bundle of leaves containing a purple-black mixture. Crushed local flora combined with mineral compounds, harmless but terrifying. When introduced to the water supply, it would turn the liquid pitch black for hours without any toxic effects. Let them fear their own drinking water. The psychological warfare campaign was working perfectly. Every day, the humans left new signs of their presence. Tribal markings carved into tree trunks. Strange totems made from local materials hanging in doorways. The Dracoth, used to fighting technological battles, were completely unprepared for an enemy that turned their own environment against them. Movement at the North Gate. Martine is reported through their low-tech signal system. Just different bird calls, mimicking local fauna. They're deploying some kind of scanning drone. Amanda smiled. Let them waste resources on scanners. Her team had already learned to move beneath the sensor threshold, their handmade gear indistinguishable from natural background readings. The hunting party split into pairs, each taking different approaches to the fortress. Rodriguez and Chen disappeared into the canopy, using braided vine ropes to traverse the upper levels like jungle hunters. Cooper and Thompson slipped into the swamp, their bodies covered in mud and local vegetation, becoming one with the murky water. Amanda and Jenkins took point on the psychological assault. They approached the fortress wall using every shadow, every piece of cover. The guards above never looked down. Their technology told them nothing was there, so they believed nothing was there. Jenkins placed the first totem, a crude humanoid figure crafted from local materials, positioned just within sight of the guard post. Amanda added the finishing touch, a string of tiny bones from local creatures, arranged in a pattern that seemed to suggest purpose and meaning where there was none. Let them waste time trying to decode a message that didn't exist. The night's operations continued with practiced precision. Water supplies were tainted. Supply lines were disrupted by carefully engineered natural accidents. Every patrol that ventured too far from the fortress found themselves plagued by phantom sounds, glimpses of movement, and the growing certainty that they were no longer the hunters. As dawn approached, Amanda gathered her team at their designated rally point. The night's work was evident in the distance, emergency lights flashing at the fortress, increased patrol activity, and the unmistakable sound of panic in the Draketh communications they could hear echoing across the swamp. "They're burning through resources," she noted with satisfaction. "Every response costs them energy, every scan drains their reserves, and they still don't understand what they're fighting." The team shared knowing looks. They weren't just 12 humans against an army anymore. They had become something from humanity's darkest legends, the shadows in the night, the whispers in the dark, the primal fears that technology was supposed to have banished. The Draketh were about to learn why humans still told stories about things that went bump in the night. Security Chief Kruthos stared at the latest reports with all four eyes, his scales shifting between patterns of fear and rage. The water supply in 3 sectors still ran black as night. Food stores were being found spoiled, marked with those haunting symbols. And now this, his most elite hunter-killer squad, found strung up in the trees like preserved meat, alive but traumatized into silence. "Play it again," he commanded. The holographic recording flickered to life, showing his best warriors moving through the swamp. Their formation was perfect, their sensors at maximum sensitivity. Then the mist rolled in, too quickly to be natural. Shapes moved in the fog, barely glimpsed. The squad's energy weapons fired wildly, hitting nothing but air. Then the screaming began. "Enough!" Kruthos slammed his fist down. "Where is the science division's analysis?" His eyes' scales rippled with anxiety. They say it's impossible, sir. The humans are using techniques that defy military doctrine. No advanced species would sacrifice technological advantage for sticks and strings. A new alert flashed. Kruthos's personal quarters had been breached. Security footage showed nothing. Just an open window and his prized collection of military badges arranged in a new pattern on his desk. A pattern that looked disturbingly like a human skull. "Their command structure is fracturing," Amanda observed from their hidden camp, watching Draketh patrols clash over overlapping orders. Time for the killing blow. The past week had been a masterclass in psychological warfare. The team had penetrated every level of the Draketh fortress, not to destroy, but to unravel. They left impossible traces, handprints 30 feet up smooth walls, footsteps that led to solid barriers, and disappeared, strange sounds that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Rodriguez, Chen, you're up," Amanda commanded. The pair moved out, carrying bundles of specially prepared vegetation. The plants, when burned, would produce a smoke that played havoc with the Draketh's compound eyes. Not toxic, just disorienting. Another advantage of studying their prey's biology rather than their technology. "They've doubled the guard on the food storage," Thompson reported through their signal system. "But they're all facing outward, watching for attacks." Amanda smiled. "Perfect. Jenkins, the mold cultures." Jenkins patted his pouch, containing specially cultivated fungi they discovered growing on local vegetation. When introduced to the Draketh's food supplies, it would make everything smell like decay. Again, harmless. But they'd never trust their own provisions again. The team had learned to move through the fortress like ghosts. They'd mapped every maintenance shaft, every unmonitored corner. The Draketh's reliance on technology had made them blind to the simple ways their defenses could be bypassed. A rope and a good climbing technique could defeat the most sophisticated motion sensors. "Multiple targets incoming," Martinez's bird call warned. Amanda watched as a Draketh patrol passed below their position. The aliens were bunched together now, abandoning proper formation in their fear. Their powered armor, once worn with pride, had become a prison, cutting them off from the environmental awareness they desperately needed. The humans struck like Earth's ancient pack hunters. Smoke bombs of burning vegetation created confusion. Trip lines of braided vine sent armored warriors sprawling. Blowgun darts tipped with local neurotoxins found the gaps in their armor. Within minutes, the entire patrol lay unconscious, their bodies arranged in another ritual pattern that meant nothing but would spawn a dozen new theories among their commanders. Their psychological evaluation just came through, Cooper reported, having intercepted a data packet during the chaos. Their combat psychologists are recommending full withdrawal. They're calling it endemic terror syndrome. Amanda nodded with grim satisfaction. The Draketh's greatest weakness had been their assumption that warfare required technology. They never understood that humans had spent millennia perfecting the art of breaking an enemy's will to fight. "Tomorrow," she announced to her team, "we trigger the stampede." But tonight, she pulled out her obsidian knife, its blade darker than the alien night. "Tonight, we remind them why their ancestors feared the dark." In the distance, alarms began to wail as more impossible breaches were discovered. The humans melted into the shadows, leaving only whispers and fear behind. The hunt was reaching its climax, and the Draketh were about to discover that technology was no shield against primal terror. Amanda stood in the pre-dawn darkness, watching the massive herd of creatures she'd come to think of as thunder beasts grazing near the fortress walls. Each one massed about 3 times an earth elephant, with 6 muscular legs and thick armoured hides. The Draketh had dismissed them as harmless herbivores, their sophisticated defences focused on technological threats from above, not biological ones from below. Another patrol passing, Thompson whispered, nearly invisible in her camouflage of local vegetation. "Their formations are completely broken down. They're jumping at shadows now." "Good." Amanda checked her handmade signal flares, dried sap and mineral compounds that would burn with intense light when ignited. "Status on the herd." "Cooper and Martinez have them surrounded. We've spent 3 days blocking their usual migration paths. They're agitated, hungry, and pointed right at the fortress's weakest wall. The past week had taught them everything about these massive creatures. Like Earth's herd animals, they spooked at sudden movements and bright lights. Once startled, they wouldn't stop running until they reached familiar grazing grounds. And thanks to the team's careful manipulation of their feeding patterns, the only path there led straight through the Draketh stronghold. All teams in position, Rodriguez's bird call echoed through the purple canopy. Amanda raised her hand, holding the first flare. Remember, once this starts, we have exactly 12 minutes before their backup generators kick in and restore full power to the shields. Time it perfectly. The team had discovered this weakness days ago. The fortress's shield generators would automatically shut down if their sensors detected a massive biological surge, a failsafe to prevent local wildlife from being harmed. It would take 12 minutes for the system to recognize the surge as a threat and restart. Now, the flares ignited with blinding intensity. Thunder beasts reared up in panic, their massive bodies casting huge shadows in the sudden light. Cooper and Martinez's teams emerged from hiding, waving smoke-producing bundles of vegetation, driving the herd forward like ancient humans directing mammoth stampedes. The ground began to shake. Thousands of tons of alien flesh moved as one, gathering speed. Draketh sensors blared warnings, too late. The fortress shields flickered and died, exactly as predicted, their fail-safes triggered by the approaching biological mass. Second phase. Amanda commanded. The team split into practiced groups, using the chaos of the stampede as cover. As the thunder beasts smashed through the outer walls like they were made of paper, the humans moved through gaps in the Draketh's panic-scattered defenses. Their command center is sealed, Thompson reported through their signal system. But they're not watching the maintenance shafts anymore. Amanda smiled grimly. Just like our ancestors. When the mammoths reached the walls, the real hunters slipped in behind. They moved through the fortress like shadows, using routes mapped over days of careful observation. The Draketh were in chaos, their technological advantages worse than useless. Energy weapons couldn't be fired blindly with their own troops scattered everywhere. Motion sensors were overwhelmed by the stampede. Communications were drowned out by the thunder of massive feet and the screech of tearing metal. Amanda's team converged on the command center from 3 different directions. The massive security doors, designed to withstand energy weapons and explosives, had one simple weakness: the ventilation system. No matter how advanced a species became, they still needed to breathe. Cooper's special smoke mixture went in first, local fungi spores that would sting the Draketh's sensitive eyes without causing permanent damage. Then came the real attack. They dropped from ceiling panels and emerged from maintenance ducts, moving with the fluid grace of practiced predators. Obsidian knives fanned the gaps in armored environment suits. Blow darts tipped with neural toxins dropped guards before they could raise weapons. In the confusion, many Draketh shot at their own people, unable to distinguish friend from foe through streaming eyes. Amanda burst into the main command room to find Security Chief Krithos backed against his tactical display, scales shifting in patterns of pure terror. Outside, the thunder of the stampede was fading, but its work was done. The fortress lay in ruins, its defenses shattered not by advanced weapons, but by the simple, unstoppable force of nature guided by human cunning. Impossible, Krithos whispered as Amanda approached, her stone knife gleaming. We are the most advanced military force in 3 sectors. That, Amanda replied, was exactly your weakness. The Galactic Council chamber fell into stunned silence as the last recording played out. The footage, captured by the Draketh's own security systems, showed 12 mud-covered humans systematically dismantling the most advanced military force in known space. Not with bombs or energy weapons, but with wooden spears, stone knives, and a stampeding herd of alien megafauna. High Counselor Zixus's tentacles were completely still, a sign of absolute shock in his species. Play the surrender moment again. The hologram shifted. There stood Major Amanda Blackwood, covered in purple mud and alien plant matter, holding nothing but an obsidian knife to the throat of Security Chief Krathos. Around them lay the unconscious forms of his elite guard, taken down by blow darts and primitive traps. Your ancestors, Amanda's voice rang clear in the recording, forgot what it meant to be afraid of the dark. Mine never did. The scene shifted to the fortress exterior. The thunder beasts had carved a path of destruction through the supposedly impregnable defences. But more telling were the walls, covered in primitive markings that would haunt the Draketh's nightmares for generations to come. Psychological analysis indicates severe trauma among surviving Draketh forces, the Council's A reported. 97% exhibit symptoms of what they're calling shadow terror. Many refuse to serve in darkened areas. Some won't operate their powered armor, claiming it cuts them off from hearing the hunters approach. Representative Yix chimed softly. The most fascinating aspect is how they did it. No casualties on either side. The humans could have killed hundreds, but they chose fear instead of death. Terror, Supreme Commander Call rumbled, is a weapon older than civilization itself. We forgot that. They didn't. The chamber doors opened, and Amanda strode in with her team. They had cleaned up since their return, but something of the hunt still clung to them. A predatory grace that made even the most advanced council species instinctively uneasy. Mission accomplished, Amanda reported simply. The Draketh have signed full surrender documents. Their leadership is requesting technological monitoring to prevent future conflicts. Apparently, they don't trust their advanced systems anymore. Remarkable. Zexus managed. But surely now you'll abandon these primitive methods. Return to proper technological warfare. Amanda shared a knowing look with her team. With all due respect, Counselor, I think you're missing the point. We didn't succeed despite our primitive methods. We succeeded because of them. Technology can fail. Electronics can be jammed. Power sources can be depleted. She drew her obsidian knife, making several council members flinch. But this is born from millions of years of evolution. The knowledge behind it was earned through countless generations of survival against everything nature could throw at us. She placed a small cloth bundle on the council table. Inside were the simple tools that had brought down an empire: wooden spears, stone knives, braided ropes, and blow darts. The Draketh thought they were invincible because they had the most advanced technology. But they forgot something crucial. Before we had technology, we were already the most dangerous things on our planet. Those instincts, those skills, that knowledge, it's still inside us. It's what makes us human. The council chamber's lights flickered briefly, a minor power fluctuation. Amanda noticed with amusement how many of the alien representatives twitched nervously at the darkness. The Draketh have requested human advisors, she continued, to teach them what they've forgotten. That true strength isn't in your tools, but in your ability to survive without them. As her team filed out, Amanda paused at the door. One last thing, Counselor. The next time you need an impossible mission accomplished, remember, sometimes the oldest solutions are the best ones. Humanity doesn't need technology to be dangerous. We just need our wits, our will, and the knowledge our ancestors paid for in blood and survival. The chamber remained silent long after they left. Finally, Zexus spoke what they were all thinking. Perhaps we should revise our classification of advanced species. In the halls of the Galactic Council, the legend was already growing. Aliens still tell tales of the day humans conquered a planet with nothing but courage, and remind their children that sometimes the most primitive weapon is the most dangerous of all.